Good. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Today is the Pascack Valley Regional High School District Board of Education regular meeting. Monday, January 17th, 2022. During this meeting, there will be two opportunities for citizens to ask questions and make comments. During the first opportunity, which is early in the agenda, the comments are invited on agenda items only. The second opportunity will occur just prior to adjournment, when residents may address any topic at all. Persons wishing to speak will be recognized, rise, state their name and address, and has 5 minutes to speak. This is not the normal opening, yes, but I know that meeting notice has been published in adequate.
You'll get to that.
Okay, I'm ahead of myself? I always thought that was first. Okay, well, let's do a call to order. Roll call.
Mr. Blundo.
Here.
Dr. Blundy.
Here.
Mr. Luisi.
Here.
Mrs. Martin.
Here.
Ms. Molinelli.
Here.
Mr. Stankus.
Here.
Ms. Steffens.
Here.
Mrs. Varghese.
Here.
Mr. Weaver.
Here.
Okay. Now, we will do a flag salute, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has provided by mailing copies of said notice to the record, filing copies of said notice with the municipal clerks of Hillsdale, Montvale, Rivervale, and Woodcliff Lake, and publishing said notice in the record on May 18, 2001 and January 15, 2002. First routine matter is the superintendent report.
Yep, I'll be brief. On Friday afternoon, I sent out a letter concerning a COVID update. As you can see by the data, we have had a lot of COVID cases in the district, especially when you consider from December 24th to present day. It appears like we're starting to level off. I'm a little bit nervous about saying that out loud because I don't want it to spike again like it's been. Of roughly 400 cases in the district, over 300 have been since December 24th. And that's a lot of work. Our nurses have done a great job in doing all the contact tracing. The bigger part of that letter was that we're changing, or the state changed the quarantine and time from 5 days to 5 days from 10 days. That meant a lot more kids who were already going to be out for the 10 days came back today. They were notified before the weekend or on the weekend that they could come back, and we'll see how that goes. So there's some fairly strict restrictions when they do come back. We are having them try to stay 6 feet apart during lunch, as well as if they can't participate in athletics in that 6 through 10 days with a mask on, then they can be with the team. They just can't participate in sort of the action as far as that's concerned. So usually in my letters, I hear from people after I send them out. I haven't heard from any. Only the nurses really did when people wanted to know when exactly their children could come back to school. All right, so now we have our student reps. Hillary, would you go first?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hillary Siegel, and I will be presenting the Pascack Hills High School student report for the month of January. For classroom items, this Wednesday, January 19th, auditions for the spring show 9 to 5 the musical will be taking place. The musical is based on the 1980 movie with music by Dolly Parton, and it's a story of friendship and revenge in the Rolodex era. 3 female employees work together to get rid of their terrible male boss and have a lot of fun along the way. No matter your skill level, auditioning is extremely encouraged, so if you're interested and a Hills student, make sure to come on Wednesday. The production will be presented for everyone on March 24th through March 27th. Additionally, the Hills Interact Club will be selling lollipops for $1 each. The money from the fundraiser will go towards sponsoring a child through the foundation Save the Children. Through this organization, a child will be given the means to grow up healthy, educated, and safe, so be sure to purchase a lollipop for a great cause. For co-curricular items, the Pascack Pioneers robotics team held its kickoff event on Saturday, January 8th. On this day, the team got together to learn about the game they will be participating in during the competition season, and they created a strategy for the robot. This year, the game is titled Rapid React. This also marks the official start to their season as they go on to build the robot and compete with it. It will be exciting to see all the Pioneers do this season. Additionally, next Monday, January 24th, the Teens Against Cancer Club will be meeting in the auditorium during lunch to kick off their biggest annual event, Relay for Life. Relay for Life is a fundraiser that the club participates in each year, hosted by the American Cancer Society, which raises money to help save lives from cancer. The event takes a lot of planning and work on part of the TAC Club. For athletic items, the boys varsity basketball team has won 5 of their last 5 games, going into tomorrow night's away game against Riverdale with a 5-1 record. Congratulations to the boys on their great accomplishments so far, and good luck with the rest of the season. For boys varsity wrestling, the team was victorious against Riverdale on January 12th, which is one of the first times doing so in 27 years. The team also beat Northern Highlands and Clifton on January 14th, and won against Lakeland in the regional first round of the Big North Duels. Congratulations to the boys varsity wrestling team. For a fun fact, during their annual holiday toy drive last month, the Pascack Hills Project Patterson helped donate 1,665 toys for the kids. This is an incredible amount, and the gifts were also appreciated. For the joke of the day, why do bees have sticky hair? Because they use honeycombs.
That's a good one.
That concludes my report.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Evan Square, and I'll be doing the monthly report for Pascack Valley High School. For classroom items, PV's chapter of the International Thespian Society, the Honor Society for Theater Students, inducted 12 new members on Wednesday, January 12th. Congratulations to all new members of the Honor Society. In December, the troupe raised over $200 for Broadway Cares / Equity Fights AIDS, raising the total donated by Valley students over the past 7 years to $1,500. Thank you to all who supported the annual cause. For co-curricular items, the PV Network and PAWS ran their annual fundraiser for Tevaland Sanctuary Farm the day before the holiday break. The students and staff helped raise over $1,000 for the care of the rescued animals and upkeep of the farm. Tevaland is a 5013C organization that rescues neglected and abused farm animals and rehabilitates them. Tevaland is their forever home. They run solely on donations and the kindness of others who volunteer at the farm. Thank you to all who supported. The Interact Club and PV Network, in collaboration with the Hillsdale United Methodist Preschool, collected and donated over 500 toys to the Center for Hope and Safety. It is a Bergen County shelter for battered women and their children. There are over 80 women and their children that are utilizing the shelter services. For athletic items, congratulations to Emma Diedrich for being the 2021-2022 Pascack Valley recipient of the NJSIAA National Girls and Women in Sports Award. The NJSIAA recognizes the importance of promoting women in athletics and hosts an annual award ceremony to support the national movement. This is the 36th year of the ceremony and is their way of providing well-deserved recognition to many of the finest athletes in the state. Pascack Valley recognizes Emma's outstanding leadership while participating on our soccer and basketball teams, as well as her success within the classroom. Second, Congratulations to Coach Jeff Jasper for being named to the NorthJersey.com Top 40 Power Players of 2021. This is the 10th annual ranking recognizing influential people within the athletic world in northern New Jersey. Congratulations, Coach Jasper, on this wonderful accomplishment. For a fun fact, be on the lookout for the upcoming Pascack Valley Class Cause Weeks, where each grade raises awareness and hosts fundraisers for their causes. Be sure you get involved and support all of these wonderful causes. And for the joke of the day, where can you go to practice math on New Year's Eve? Times Square.
Yeah, there you go. Very good. All right, thanks, folks.
Can I just ask a quick question on follow-up for Dan? What's the status with teachers and administration in COVID? Are we having a problem with teachers? Or do we have enough teachers? I know staffing was an issue with the numbers of...
Staffing's a challenge, but one thing that we did start the year doing, that if you had COVID-related absences, you could teach from home. So that helped us a lot. It meant if you were too sick and you couldn't teach, then you didn't teach. But if you could teach, then you could teach from home, and that meant you needed a sub for the classroom. That's a challenge, even though our rate of pay for subs is much higher than all the surrounding districts. It's just that people are not coming in for subs.
Okay, and then you'll get to busing under finance, just interested in the whole busing issue with the drivers and the shortage of all that?
Well, the busing issue that we faced last week or the week before was, there's a national shortage in buses based on federal rules that bus drivers need to follow. They've made it so challenging that people don't want to do it. COVID did not help the matter at all. So we get people, just in other industries, they just retired. They stopped doing it. So it's not like they have a bench that they can go to when bus drivers are sick and health. So last week, I think we had 2 days in the morning where we couldn't provide bus. But
Thank
we
you.
were able to do it in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, the first, under routine matters, we have one agenda item, which is the minutes from January 3rd, both the reorganization, the regular, and the executive meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, roll call?
Mr. Blundo,
Yes.
Dr. Blundy,
Yes.
Mr. Luisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Molinelli,
Yes.
Mr. Stankus,
Yes.
Ms. Steffens,
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese,
Yes.
Mr. Weaver.
Abstain?
Next agenda item is we have a couple of presentations. The first one is from Dr. Barry Backenheimer on our Start Strong testing results. Barry?
Thank you. Put it up here on the screen. Okay, so my presentation this evening is on the Start Strong assessment results. Just by background, this is a presentation required by law. Anytime we do any kind of standardized testing from the state of New Jersey, we have to report the scores publicly to the Board of Education within 60 days of receipt of those scores, plus additional information about the various breakdowns by subgroups, et cetera, which I'll go into tonight. So what is Start Strong? This was a test that was given to our students, specifically mostly our freshmen and our sophomores and a couple of our seniors back in October. Just by a short background, if you may recall last year in the spring when we normally give the NJSLA test to grades 9 and 10, we got a waiver to not give any testing last year in the spring. The state of New Jersey, the entire state did not have to do that testing. in its place, as part of the waiver from the federal government, we had to administer this Start Strong test to assess what the state or the national government considered learning loss at the time in October. And we were told when we gave that test, we would get the results back as soon as possible. Again, we took our test the second week in October. We got our results just before holiday vacation. So here we are today reporting on the data there. And I'll share with you today district data, brief comparison between the schools, some subgroup reports, correlation between student grades that we ran a grade report just prior to vacation, as well as just some general interventions we're doing for helping students who might be behind. So first, district analysis. Just to break it down here, if you take a look, we tested grade 9 English Language Arts 10, and then obviously all the grades that are there. This is a district level piece. The green indicates that less support may be needed, yellow indicating some, and red indicating strong. I'll talk in a little bit about what those numbers actually mean in terms of actual pieces, but by way of breakdown, if you take a look, certainly the large percentage of our students, if you look at in grade 9, approximately they're saying 19% of our students strong support may be needed. This doesn't say definitely needed. This is based on the short piece that they took. These students, by the way, in terms of content, took courses that they're currently taking. So on October, roughly 5 weeks into the school year, 6 weeks into the school year, they were taking tests on subjects that they were currently in. So it's really trying to get a sense of how good they would do, how valid this information is, how valuable this information is. I'll get into that in a few minutes. But just certainly by breakdown, if we take a look here at mathematics, the number's a little bit higher in terms of what they said strong support may be needed for some of those students. In terms of science, which our grade 9 and grade 12 students took, they broke it down here by grade 9 was mostly physical science type of questions. Grade 12 was a little bit more comprehensive. Here they said again, some support may be needed. And the breakdown there was the strongest in grade 9, and grade 12 science was kind of mixed, about a third, a third, a third in between each. In terms of school comparisons, here's the spoiler alert, the two schools nearly scored the same. So there's a bunch of charts I have to show you, but the essential piece is if you take a look at all the grades, with the one exception of grade 10, under strong support may be needed in ELA, the scores are a few percentage points within each other between both schools. One of the discrepancies that's within Valley is Valley also included scores from our Park Middle School, just because by state numbers they're lumped in as part of Valley. So our Park Academy Middle School is our special education middle school that we administer, so the roughly dozen or so students who were there got lumped in as part of some of the scores that we have here. It's not the entire thing, but that's just a small piece that might have affected our numbers. As far as support levels in mathematics between the two schools, again, virtually equal between the schools, really not a major shift between the two. Science, again, also the same, roughly the same numbers between both. To me, that's promising. That tells me that we're doing okay as far as keeping things about the same in the way we teach to our kids between both schools, and the preparation levels of our incoming 9th graders as well. I think that speaks to as well. As far as a breakdown by different groups, so first we have a racial breakdown. If you take a look here, Asian, Black, Hispanic, multiple race, and white. The way it rated it here, it said certainly that Black and white students, interestingly enough, are the areas that might have needed the strongest supports, with Asian students needing the least amount of support, according to the ELA breakdown. In mathematics, here it said that mostly Black students, again, arguably needed the strongest support, with Asian students needing the least amount of support, according to this breakdown here. In science, similar breakdown, although certainly if you take a look, what's striking is certainly under Black students, according to this breakdown here, 53% strong support might be needed. I'll get to correlations here in a moment. By breakdown by gender, according to this, males might need a little bit more remediation perhaps than female students in ELA, and it's a little bit closer certainly in mathematics. Science, again, relatively equal. Here it's saying that certainly some support may be needed in both groups by gender. By subgroup, by program, free and reduced lunch, students who have 504s are English language learners. special education students and general ed students. By this breakdown, saying that ELL students and special education students might need the strongest support. I wouldn't think that that comes as much of a surprise. Certainly, it's an area we certainly focus on. Same thing certainly holds true in mathematics, especially noticeable. I found this to be surprising, at least that certainly under mathematics that ELL had the highest number there, followed by special ed, and free and reduced lunch certainly as well. Science, striking numbers certainly under ELL, saying that strong support might be needed for English language learners in science and for students who are on free and reduced lunch. So what does this mean as far as a breakdown? Here's what this means in big picture. With the help of Dr. Russo, supervisor of our mathematics department, we ran a grade report of all the students in the school who took our test as of a few days prior to winter break. And we ran, these are scatter plots, and so if you take a look, if you know statistics, you know that the smaller value of the R squared number at the top, the lower that number is, the less of a correlation you have between the two. So what we ran was the student's raw score, which is the horizontal number you see across the bottom, and the student's current average in that particular class running up and down the vertical side. So there was essentially zero correlation, almost zero correlation between their Start Strong score and their grade in class. So students, for example, who may have gotten marked as needing strong support were running A's in their classes. Some students who were noting as needing little support were running C's in their classes. So we saw this across the board, and I wanted to make sure to see if this was valuable information or not. Across the board at Hills, we saw little to none, and at Valley, absolutely no correlation. The numbers were even lower. So I put this out there that if you look at some of the numbers and see the giant percentages and instantly kind of go back on your heels a little bit, as a group, we weren't sure how valuable this information was, mostly because when we dove in on the actual information, we're looking at students we've identified at needing assistance. These are students who are in our IRS programs, students who we run our DNF reports every month to see students who are failing or close to failing in classes, students who we know require large support from last year. Those students we have strong interventions in place. And those students, remarkably, a whole bunch of those students scored needing little support when we're giving them lots of support. So we really saw no association between those two sets of scores. The piece that I thought the board might find most valuable would be the interventions that we actually are putting in place for all of our students before we even had these scores. We've had these in place since June of last year through the summer and into the school year. We knew the students that needed the help, and we wanted to get these in place. We didn't need a test to tell us that students needed this backup. So things that we did included summer support classes taught by certified teachers in ELA and math, especially for our rising ninth graders. We had summer SAT prep and college application boot camp for our rising seniors, especially to make sure that they were in good stead for their college application process. We continue to use what's called our tiered systems of supports, which is part of our INRS process, the intervention and referral services. Those of you not familiar, that's our process where on a frequent basis, our school administrations and our child study teams, our guidance departments, our wellness counselors get together and identify students who might be struggling, and as they're identified, put interventions in place, whether they're Tier 1 interventions, which teachers will employ in classrooms, Tier 2 interventions, which are small group instruction that we run either during Pascack periods after school, and they can take the form of study skills classes, math lab, small group instruction to get students caught up in various areas, or Tier 3, which is one-on-one support with students. And we have all those various tiers, or it should be Tier 3, not Tier 2 in that last one, all those interventions running, again, from the summer and through the school year. We also continue with counseling for all these students, whether they're small groups run by our guidance department or one-on-one counseling done through our wellness center. We have ELL programs spearheaded by Noemi Rodriguez, who's our supervisor of world languages in ELL. Even this week, we have a program we're running for ELL parents of rising ninth graders who don't speak English. We're going to have a special program for them in Spanish so they understand how to help their kids pick classes for next year. We also have other programs. We ran during the summer a program with our fax teachers where students made their own garden and started acquiring vocabulary skills through some hands-on work this summer. Lots of programs just to really do the best we can to support our kids. Freshman and sophomore wellness programs, whether it was our orientation program, our challenge day programs, and then we're already planning ahead for summer programs for summer 2022 for not just our rising students, but existing students, anyone identified as having deficiencies or needing support throughout the school year. We're going to continue with these programs that we have in place. So in short, reporting on the data, as certainly we have to. More importantly, I think, is our internal metrics that we continually look at to see what kids need support. As far as the value of the data that we were given, I think a better snapshot certainly is going to be the standardized testing we do in the spring, and perhaps even going forward, the internal metrics that we continue to report on as a district. Any questions?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So academically, this clearly gives us a snapshot of how to measure it, or the idiosyncrasies of this test, so we have that. But to the wellness piece of it, other than like the great teacher intervention we have, is there a way to actually measure, and do we know how the wellness of our students has shifted?
It's difficult. It's such a subjective thing, right? So the best thing that we can measure is the number of students who are accessing the services. And certainly that's something that Dr. Strunzis monitors constantly and reports out to us on a monthly basis. And we continue to see high levels of student usage of our counseling services and our wellness services. Certainly, anytime you go into our wellness center, our counselors are being utilized, and they're planning programs, and they're out and they're being used. So that's my best metric I can point to, is high utilization of our services.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So the grade versus raw score that you did here, do you normally do that with the end of the year assessments that you had in the past, or the park or whatever?
So typically, the state has standardized testing that takes place in late March, early April. In the past, it's been the NJ Student Learning Assessment. We have a new assessment now that's coming out. They've changed, so they're phasing out NJSLA and now moving to NJ GPA, which is going to be designed for 11th graders. We still don't have any details on this test yet. In fact, it's still being written. I just found out, in fact, on Friday that Dr. Russo, our math supervisor, is going to be one of the folks who's going to help write the questions for the math section of the test. So hopefully we'll get some good insight into that, which will be nice. But if you recall, probably going back, I'm going to say over 15 years ago, there used to be a test called GEPA and HESPA. 8th graders took the GEPA, 11th graders took the HESPA. This was almost like a minimum basic skills test that students needed to graduate high school. They're telling us it's not quite like that, but I imagine it's probably somewhere in between the NJSLA and the HESPA, but it's designed for 11th graders as almost as a graduation requirement and less for the other grades. So again, we're sort of having an apple and oranges comparison, because prior to this, it's been 9th and 10th graders, and we haven't had that test now. It's been 3 years since we've had results. So it's one of these things where it's hard to compare piece to piece, which is why we established our internal district metrics to look at how we're doing, because if we don't have external snapshots beyond, say, an SAT or something like that to see how we're doing, we want to know internally how we're doing. So that's what we're going to keep looking at.
I have another question. Thank you. You said that like the 9th graders were tested on grade level. Was it actually grade level? Because I know my kids were tested as well in the middle school level, and they were tested a grade level below on some, I don't recall if it was for LA or if it was for math, but I specifically remember it was a grade drop for the testing that they received this year. And I noticed that you stated that it was for the present year. Was that throughout 9 through 12?
Yeah, so for example, students who were in geometry this year, they were given a geometry test, and the way it was established is what a geometry student would expect to know at that point in the school year. So 6 weeks, give or take, worth of geometry and a fair amount of algebra from the prior year. Okay. So, I guess kind of back and forth, it's a little bit of information that's out there. One thing that I can share, which just prompted me, students who were part of our summer program, at least as far as Start Strong, scored significantly higher than students who were not part of our summer intervention program.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a quick question about the high school requirement, because that's a little frightening at this point. So they're doing this to the juniors, so if they don't pass this year, it's like next year is it?
So that's a great question. We don't have any information on this beyond the fact that it's coming. We were told back in October to expect this new NJGPA test. I'm going to guess for our current 11th graders, and this is purely a speculation piece on my part, no substantiation, that it'll probably be like they did on the older tests, where if you don't pass, you'll have other tests you could use, whether it's PSAT or SAT or the AccuPlacer or something like that. I imagine there'll be other cut scores you could hit to count for your graduation requirement.
So they're not going with 3 years for validity of this test, they're just going with it?
I think so. Again, we're still kind of waiting on a lot of information. As we get more, I certainly can share that with the board.
Sounds great, thank you.
Anybody else for Barry? Thank you, Barry.
Okay, thank you.
So next up is our ongoing board training. Today, we're going to learn a little bit about the purchase manual from Yas. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I gave you a handout. The purchasing manual, which is board approved annually. It had been approved a few months ago. It's also online as well. I'm not going to go through the entire purchasing manual, but I am going to just go through some highlights. So if you follow me here, the purpose of the purchasing manual is to assist all Board of Education employees in the proper purchasing practices to be in full compliance with all applicable laws, code, policies, NJQSAC requirements, and New Jersey Division of Local Government Services through the local finance notices. So the purchasing manual is designed to achieve compliance with the law and board policy on purchasing, to promote efficiency in the purchasing practices, and achieve savings of money through proper purchasing practices. So purchasing authority, the board, you've authorized me, the school business administrator and board secretary, to be the purchasing agent for the school district. That is in most cases in all districts. The business administrator is appointed the purchasing agent. So the purchasing agent is the only individual in the school district that has the authority to make purchases for the Board of Education. There is, as far as purchasing is concerned, there's a quotation limit and there's also a bid limit. So the quotation limit, the threshold is now $6,600. So this means that any specific item or group of items of a similar nature purchased by the school district totaling more than $6,600 and less than $44,000, which is the bid threshold, for the entire year must be competitively quoted. So here are some examples. There's a simple quote for lowest cost. That's an easily defined scope. So what does that mean? You have to get your bathroom repaired, right? You have something wrong with your sink, you call a plumber or something, or you have to have your trees cut. So that's cut and dried. You know what it is. There's no interpretation of what has to happen here. So there's also a request for proposals, which is known as an RFP. That is not necessarily the lowest cost. So the award of the contract goes through an evaluative criteria. The RFP method is designed to award the contract to the vendor based upon a list of criteria. It's usually 3. One is technical. That's a submission of narrative, how the firm will provide services, planned approach, and measurable results. Also, the understanding how services will be provided. Then the second thing is management. That is business organization and staffing, experience, and knowledge of district. And then the third is cost. The fee proposal submission and cost analysis. So whoever wants to run this RFP, whatever it may be, they'll assign weights equaling up to 100 for these 3 categories. Competitive contracting. There's certain contracts over $44,000. This procurement method is used for certain contracts over $44,000, such as food service management company, student information system, business office and human resources software. The award of the contract is similar to an RFP. It is based upon the evaluative criteria, which is designed to award the contract to the respondent, whose response will provide the highest quality services at a fair and competitive price. This has an administrative process to be followed, so that is a big difference. You have to follow these certain administrative processes. Example of another one is EUS, it's called Extraordinary Unspecifiable Services. The EUS procurement method is used for procurement of insurance consultant services. This also has an administrative process to be followed. We did one recently, and we awarded to Brown & Brown for our health insurance consultant. Bid limit. The bid limit, as mentioned before, is $44,000. This means that any specific item, class of items, and/or services of a similar nature purchased by the school district totaling in the aggregate more than $44,000 for the entire year must be competitively advertised for bid. So this restriction is for the entire district and not by location of schools. So there is an exception. There are many exceptions to the bid limit. You can purchase through the New Jersey state contract or what's known as NJ Start from the state of New Jersey. There's also educational data, otherwise known as Ed Data. There's also Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, ESCNJ, Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission, Camden County Educational Services Commission, the New Jersey Competitive Purchasing Alliance, otherwise known as Bergen Bids. There's also NJ Edge. There are professional services outlined by New Jersey law, such as legal, auditing, architectural, engineering, and medical. Those are also exempt from bidding laws. Textbooks, student-produced publications, library and educational goods. Legal notices, food supplies, utilities, insurance, election expenses, travel and conferences, and district dues and memberships, and contracts with other government entities, county and state colleges. So those are some other examples as far as things that are exempt from the bid. Talk a little bit about vendors. Depending on the amount of the purchase order in the aggregate, the following documents must be in possession at the business office. Affirmative action evidence, otherwise it's usually called a Certificate of Employee Information Report. Also, a New Jersey Business Registration Certificate. Also, Chapter 271, Political Contribution Disclosure Form. There's also an Iran Financial Disclosure Form. There's also an IRS W-9 form. And there are other documents required by federal procurement code. There's also regular contact with students. So there, contracted service vendors who come in regular contact with students must comply with anti-bullying reporting, criminal history background checks, and also any other pre-employment requirements. Student activities. These funds finance the normal co-curricular activities of the student body organization. Only expenditures relating to student group activities which benefit students may be made from student activity accounts. Student activity funds are monies generated by students' participation, authorized to be spent by students, and expended on behalf of the students. Requisitions, this is how people place orders. The person who prepares the requisition has certain responsibilities before the order is sent to the administrator, supervisor, or principal for approval. The requisition does not become a purchase order until the purchasing agent or the business administrator approves it. The requester is responsible for receipt of items ordered. The administrator or supervisor ensures that the receiving copy of the purchase order is signed. The requester follows a process for items back-ordered, missing from the order, damaged, incorrect items sent, or discontinued items. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what the purchasing manual addresses. And again, you have the full purchasing manual in your possession as well as it's on the website.
All questions for yes? Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we are up to comments from the public, and this is on agenda items only. Citizens are invited to make comments regarding agenda items that are limited to 5 minutes, according to the Pascack Valley Regional High School District Board of Education policy. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, sign in, state their name and town of residence, and which agenda item they are referencing. We are open to the public.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Carolee Adams from Montvale. Dr. Bockenheimer left, but maybe these questions could be answered at another time. I was just curious regarding the Start Strong test. What percentage of the students actually took the tests? Was it 100%, 50%? I don't know if that matters to you or not. The second question would be, and this matters to me, when I see the breakdown by white, black, and I believe Hispanic, how do you qualify someone who's biracial or triracial? And I have a biracial family, so I'm just curious how that impacts your future surveys, and perhaps that's meaningful in some way. And then the other question regarding the test as well was, did these students take them at home or were they in the classroom? And I don't know whether that matters or not, but I just had a sense of curiosity more than anything else. Then Dr. Bockenheimer mentioned, and I didn't hear it quite clearly, about another test where it would be Mr. Russo who would be writing the questions. So I just wondered in regard to what test that was. And how it goes forward. And you know I've mentioned many times about testing before, so that it sounds so terribly inconsistent. And I wish we could come down to some, I know you mentioned HESPA, the HSL, NJSLA, and whatever else we have, is that the Superintendent's Association, the Board of Education, the New Jersey School Boards Association, where they could, or the New Jersey State Board of Education, where they could come down to some sense of testing that is meaningful from year to year to year to year to year. And it's not right now, at least from my naive perspective. Now, apart from that is regarding the COVID tests. I'm just curious, I know how parents are so overwhelmed with trying to find rapid tests. And my suggestion even to our local mayor and council is there any way where we could get a huge supply instead of running to ShopRite or Walmart or Walgreens or Wegmans? And I don't know whether or not you're helpful or you're able. I know there's been promise of it from the federal government, but I haven't seen it come forth. But I just wondered whether or not you could make it a little bit easier on the parents in particular who are sending their children to school to have rapid testing, and whether or not if that was part of your discussion, Dr. Fishbein, I didn't hear it, I'm sorry, but I think it's very meaningful to a lot of parents to be able to get them easily. And they're expensive, and I understand now an insurance policy could cover the purchase of them, but any comments about it, and maybe another time?
No, we haven't received any tests from the federal government for distribution.
Do you require your students who have had COVID to take a test before they re-enter the classroom?
No, if they stay out for the period of time, whatever that is, 10 days, now it's 5 days, then we don't.
You don't require a test then?
No.
Okay. So my answer to the questions that I've asked, I don't know if you know, but whether or not you would even comment about particularly the classification or qualification of the students as among 3 categories.
Yeah, I don't think any response I would give would be uneducated, so I think we will drive that unless you have anything. But
I don't.
Back to Dr. Backenheim and get back to you on that. The one that I'll take a little stab at addressing was about the test that Dr. Russo is going to help do some of the questions in the math section. And I believe, if I understood it correctly, it's going to replace the, what was it?
NJSLA.
It's going to replace the NJSLA. It's going to be similar. It's just called something different. And Dr. Russo is going to be one of a few.
He's on a
people.
panel.
Yeah, he's not writing the whole.
It'll be for the entire test taker population.
Correct.
That's the
Okay.
only- Other than that, we will get back to you on.
But do you happen to agree or disagree with classification of breaking it down into 3 categories? I mean, I have a young fellow in my family, and I adore him mightily, and he's American African, and he's American Caucasian. I mean, so he's neither of those 3 categories.
A personal opinion is that the further we get along in society, the more it's going to be difficult to get the breakdowns that they're trying to get. It is difficult if you have somebody that's multiracial. This is just an opinion. And really, how are you classifying them? Is it when they self-classify, when they enroll? I don't know. But personally, I understand where you're coming from.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing no hands, we will close to the public, and we have 2 consent agenda items under policy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Blundo?
Yes.
Dr. Blundy?
Yes.
Mr. Luisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Molinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Stankus?
Yes.
Ms. Steffens?
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Okay. Next item is education, where we also have 2 consent agenda items. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Blundo?
Yes.
Dr. Blundy?
Yes.
Mr. Luisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Molinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Stankus?
Yes.
Ms. Steffens?
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Okay. On to human resources. Looks like we have just the one item. Is that right?
No.
Oh, consent 1 through 4, I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Happy we're getting new subs.
And any others? Roll call?
Mr. Blundo?
Yes.
Dr. Blundy?
Yes.
Mr. Luisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Molinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Stankus?
Yes.
Ms. Steffens?
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Okay. Finance, 14 consent agenda items. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
There are a number of items on there for special education, so I know transportation for us has been an issue. What's the consequence if we run into issues with transportation for,
These are bid acceptances,
right?
so they're going to do the runs.
And then, just so you're aware, sometimes they get quotes, because
Yes.
if there, no one bids on a route, we can go out and get a quote from someone, and it's for a certain number of days, and then you have to go out to bid again.
Well, these are also routes that we have run currently.
That's correct. Some of them are re-quotes, like I just mentioned, and others are actual bid awards.
So I guess my main question is, we haven't had any issues with any of our special ed runs, have we?
Not really. I mean, sometimes we have what's known as parent contracts as well.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, both Tammy and Mike brought it up different ways, but the fact that we had a few people that, or a few days that routes weren't met, at what point are we obligated or held accountable for the fact that we're not providing the required transportation for people outside of a certain mileage?
Well, the 2 occasions where it occurred were what I would call extenuating circumstances. The bus driver was sick, there was no sub. We were able to get to people in time to have them make arrangements. You know, we're not alone with this phenomenon right now. And if you read the newspapers and see it in the news, this is a national problem. And they're trying to do things like, I just read there's pending legislation about waiving the under the hood information. So a bus driver really needs to know how the engine works. I'm not sure that's really necessary. I've been driving for, 17 years. I can do some things, but I'm not sure about everything that goes on under the hood.
They've waived that requirement.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
Yep.
I think it's good until the end of March.
Okay, so I think we have been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? Okay, we're ready for a roll call?
Mr. Blundo?
Yes.
Dr. Blundy?
Yes.
Mr. Luisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Molinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Stankus?
Yes.
Ms. Steffens?
Yes.
Mrs. Varghese?
Yes.
Mr. Weaver?
Yes.
Okay. On to old business. Anyone having any old business items? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. New business.
I have something for new business. I'm sure many people saw this in the paper, but I just want to commend Mr. Sherman and his program for inspiring Tyler Toledo and a group of students to tell a story of a very fun event that they have, the senior assassin each year, calling it the Water Wars. So it was in the paper, I'm sure everybody saw it, but very, very exciting, and I really appreciate the teachers and all the ways they inspire these kids in our district.
Any other new business? No? Okay. We will once again open to the public on any topic. Ms. Adams?
Thank you again. Please know that what I say here, it's limited to less than 5 minutes. I speak with reverence and in remembrance. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., American Baptist minister, father, husband, powerful orator, writer, is best known for his leadership role advancing civil rights using nonviolent civil disobedience. King attended Morehouse College, earning a BA in sociology. Combining a passion for racial equality, justice, with a rediscovered spirituality, King then attended Crozer Theological Seminary, following in his father's and grandfather's footsteps to earn a Bachelor's of Divinity and later completing his PhD in theology at Boston University. His countless quotes are unquestionably brilliant and passionate, and I oft use these that are referenced. Quote, "I still have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. One day this nation will rise up and live up to its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Quote, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Quote, "A just law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God. An unjust law is a code that is out of harmony with the moral law. One is not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws." Quote, "Perhaps the most dangerous periods in civilization have been those periods when there was no moral foundation in society. Education without morals is like a ship without a compass, merely wandering nowhere. It is not enough to have the power of concentration, but we must have worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. It is not enough to know the truth, but we must love truth and sacrifice for it." His "I Have a Dream" speech invoked pivotal documents in American history, including the Declaration of Independence, the Emancipation Proclamation, and the United States Constitution. Also infused are allusions to biblical verses such as Isaiah 40, 4-5, Amos 5:24, and at its conclusion, Galatians 3:28, quote, "There is no longer Jew or Greek, there is no longer slave or free, there is no longer male and female, but all of you are one in Christ." Dr. King was unashamed of his faith, and he spoke boldly of it. His final speech, delivered April 3rd, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, and but just the day before he was assassinated, concluded with this: "Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I might not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And so, I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord." May God bless you all, and good night.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. And I think a lot of times on these holidays, people lose the spirit of the holiday, and I thank you for bringing up anybody that may have lost that spirit today back into focus about what today was all about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public? Okay, we're going to entertain a motion to go into executive session. The board will not be coming back and taking any action after our discussions. And I guess to disclose, we're going to be talking about the superintendent's search. Correct. So is there a motion to go into closed?
So moved.
A second? Second. With no objection, by acclamation.